Well, joining us now is Mayowa Tijani, Editor, Business and Development, The Cable. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
All right, we know that coronavirus has been ravaging countries, and it is obviously affecting economies, just as IMF is raising the red flag. And we know how China has been a major force when it comes to global economy in terms of cooperations and all of it. But talk to us about how the major impact this is going to have on economies.
I think what the IMF is saying is totally in order, because since the coronavirus outbreak, we've seen a fall of about, oil prices basically are falling as low as $57, which was not projected for this year. And of course, for a country like Nigeria, this affects us directly because a lot of our revenue comes in from oil prices. When there was crisis between Iran and the US, oil prices went as high as $69.
Yeah.
But that has been reversed as a result of coronavirus. And for the global economy at large, we understand that China is like a major force in the global economy. Today, accounting for about, I think, 18% of the entire global economy. So for an economy like China, slowing down at this point in time is going to actually affect the global economy. But what they say about China, if China wants to get something done, they are basically like the only ones who can do it. So if they are able to get over this coronavirus situation, China also has the capacity to grow rapidly upon return into activity.
Conditional,
yes,
because there's been there are talks about not enough information is available because of this as a result of this virus, and the measures China is putting in place, yet we still see the number of spread and the number of deaths. So what are the conditionalities, or what's your confidence that China will bounce back anytime soon?
Well, I feel like the global economy has been here before. In 2002, 2003, where there was an outbreak of SARS, it was a lot like this. In fact, the mortality rate
wasn't a global economy at the time.
Yeah, it wasn't as big as now, but China at the time made up for about 8% of the global economy, which of course is big enough. Today, Nigeria, the biggest economy in Africa, does not make up for up to 4% of global economy. But then China made up to 8%, and they were still able to, they had growth for 2002, 2003, 2004, and global economy also had growth. So there were fears at the time also that this virus was going to spread across the world, was going to affect economies, was going to slow down GDP of the entire world, but that did not happen because they were able to curb the virus. However, this time around, the mortality rate on SARS is about above 9%. For coronavirus, is just a little bit above 2%. But the difference is that this one seems to be moving a lot faster. The problem is that we're looking at the dark side of the picture. In this same whole situation, we've had more than 10,000 people recover from the virus, which means that while it's deadly, it's not as dangerous as we are making it seem on the global economy.
While focus is on the virus, $517 billion has been the estimated global cost in ensuring that this virus is curtailed. How do we expect to bounce back from all of this?
Okay, so one thing is, you know how they say about publicity, good publicity is publicity, bad publicity is publicity. If you're spending money on a virus, it's money. If you're spending money on developing a school, it's still money. So as long as money keeps coming into the global economy, there's still going to be economic activities, no matter, for example, the amount of money being pumped into this is going to go to researchers, it's going to go to doctors, it's going to go to nurses, it's going to go to different parts of the Chinese economy, and of course the economy of the world. So whilst there might be a cost attached in the sense of how much we're having to put into it, it's still money going into the global economy. So there are fears here and there, but the reality is that as long as the world continues to innovate its way around problems, we can also get through this.
All right, so Mayowa Tijani, we'll leave the discussion here at this time. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you for.
Joining us is Mayowa Tijani, Editor, Business and Development, The Cable. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let's talk about the spillover effect and how worried we should be. We see that Apple telling investors that it will fail to meet its quarterly revenue target because of its temporarily constrained. And just yesterday, we got reports in Nigeria talking about drug insecurity because we import about 80% or 70% of our drugs from China. We see these stories across countries. How worried should we be?
I think we should be very worried, actually. But since the world has been here before, I feel like we can handle it. Now,
we can?
Yeah, we can. Speaking of
a big organization like Apple.
Yeah. Speaking of Apple, this is like the second time in 2 years, I guess, that they are bringing down their profit forecast. And of course, because of the situation in China, 10% of the people who should be working in the factory are actually like the people who are there now. So like 90% of the workforce is having to stay back home. Some of their outlets are short and all that. And of course, China being a very big market for production of Apple products and for sale also affects how far that is going to go. And of course, it's not just Apple. Some days ago, the Mobile World Congress, which of course is the biggest mobile phone gathering in the world, was actually shut down because of coronavirus. It was expected that over 100,000 people would come for that particular conference. And of course, thinking about that in terms of dollars, let's say every person spends $1,000 getting to that congress. All of that money for 100,000 people is not being expended at that point in time. Of course, there's a shift. And of course, we see from last year that a lot of technological leaps that we had in the mobile phone world was displayed at the Mobile World Congress, but that's not happening this year. Yeah. And of course, it affects the move in the electronic market for now. So yeah, it's going to, we have these challenges. It's going to affect trade, especially
tourism as well has been affected.
Yeah, so there is a case of a super spreader. This is just one example, who is linked to about 11 cases in 3 countries. And of course, it's just a businessman who goes from one country to another to another. Now he's free, but a number of people who have been infected by him are still having to battle the challenges of disease. So in a largely connected world, it's difficult to say we want to stop this or stop that, though there's been a lot of
controversies in talking about restrictions, why countries should, close their borders or not, and all of that.
So in a time like this, the world is too connected for that to be effective. So we are going to have like some effects, both diplomatically, financially. The global economy, like the IMF says, would take a hit, but if we recover from this fast, for example, if we're done with it in the first quarter of the year, then there are still 3 quarters to deal with.
That's next month.
Yeah, next month.
But it doesn't seem like we are getting close to, this subsiding anytime soon.
It doesn't seem like that, but with the pace at which we're like a 2.3% mortality rate, so it means that at least nearly 90% of the people who are being faced with this challenge actually survive, are still alive, basically. So if that's the situation, it means that, there's what they say about terrorism and this kind of outbreak being a buzzing fly in a China shop.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of noise, it makes a lot of headlines, it gets people worried. But if you look at the scale of the effect it has, it's not as big as we actually make it seem.
Really? All right. Let's leave it here now. Mayowa Tijani, thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, joining us now is Mayowa Tijani, the editor, Business and Development of The Cable. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let's have a projection of what will happen or what might happen to the Nigerian economy if this is to get into Nigeria the way it got into China.
Oh, okay. For Nigeria, I think without getting into Nigeria, it's already affecting the Nigerian economy because oil prices and all that. If we get into Nigeria, we would, for 2014, where we had the Ebola viral disease, we saw how the Lagos state government and of course the federal government at the time came together and fought against the virus and were able to like put it. I feel like Lagos State by that system has been prepared for viral diseases like this. And of course, if you look at the structure of the nation, most international flights would come in through Lagos. So I think that puts us in a very good position to prepare to tackle this kind of disease. But I would say that no country in Africa has the kind of system, like the World Health Organization says that if this happens in countries with weaker health systems, there will be problems. So if this comes into Nigeria, it's going to have enormous impact on our economy.
There has been more focus on the airports in Nigeria. What about the seaports? We have other seaports in Nigeria, and so what if it comes through the seaports?
Yeah, that's also possible. But because this is a novel coronavirus, not a lot is known about it. And so the means of transmission is often via contact with someone who basically has had such. And of course, contact of persons from that region of the world is often done via air travel. So, of course, there's travel that is through the seaports and all that, but it's limited in numbers. So, the focus also, of course, while we should not neglect the seaports, but the focus should be on air travel because that's really where this whole thing is coming from.
Let's talk global economy right now because there are projections that if this becomes a pandemic, we are looking at a $1.1 trillion loss. And there are also hopes that there will be a rebound, that is a sharp rebound. And I wonder what you think that governments across the world should be doing now to ensure that rebound as quickly as possible because we don't know when this will end.
Yeah. So the G20 countries are meeting in Saudi Arabia later this week, and one of the issues to discuss basically is this uncertainty about coronavirus and all. But they've done some scenario planning. Worst case scenario, which of course I hope nobody gets to, the virus has the capacity to kill millions of people. And of course it will wreck the global economy, go as far as going into another global economic crisis. However, looking on the bright side, what the IMF has said is, okay, this is an uncertainty that we cannot control. But there are other ones we can control. We can control climate change, we can control trade deals, we can control geopolitical tensions. So world leaders should basically focus on controlling that, whilst the scientists, the researchers, the doctors are focused on how can we get rid of this particular
It will take 18
disease.
months.
Yeah, so the reality is that it doesn't, the world today, these vaccines, the way we can solve these problems is not something that is going to happen fast. So the best way to deal with it is we try as much as possible to manage it, keep it within the countries that have it now, make sure it doesn't spread to countries with weaker health system where things can get out of hand. So if the world leaders can focus on that, I think that we can manage some growth for the next few years.
All right, Mayowa Tijani, thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you.